Okay, I would like to call the Plan Commission to order for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Roll call, please.
President Kardowski.
Here.
Trustee Paul. Here. Trustee Atkinson. Here. Trustee Krieger.
Here.
Member Skippington.
Here.
Member Campbell.
Here.
And Member Allen.
Present.
Okay, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. Okay, I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Number 5, action on the minutes of the February 4th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. You must state your name and address. You are limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individual's name, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Are there any comments from the public on items not on tonight's agenda? Any comments on items not on tonight's agenda?
Yes. We would like to introduce President Mary Kardowski again as our new village president for the next 3 years. Who's been doing a wonderful job so far.
Oh, you big brown noser. I was just gonna say that. Good work, Gary.
I'll vote for it.
Good work.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, that's-
Okay, I have no
You
written,
still can't drive your Segway.
I have no written communications or announcements. Does anybody have any written communications or announcements? And none. We'll go to number 8, action items. 8A, consider, discuss, act on a 3-lot certified survey map, CSM, request by BayMar Holdings LLC, 460 Marina Lane, parcel VA-132-13. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen, bring up an image of the certified survey map. Zoom in a little bit here. All right, so the requested 3-lot certified survey map is for the West Point Center development. If you recall, we did approve a PUD for this property. What we're doing here is splitting this property up into 3 different phases. So we have the apartment building, the townhomes, and the CBRF. That's the main point of the CSM. There will be some revisions to the PUD that'll be coming through kind of as we go through site planning and detailed engineering of it. Some things are getting moved around. So a revised PUD will come forward to Planning Commission and Village Board at some point here in the near future. In terms of the lots themselves, you may notice Lot 3 has a rather thin frontage requirement right here. That will be part of the PUD amendment, is to allow for that narrower frontage. It does not have any actual driveway access for Lot 3. It'll be internal. However, under our code, we do require it to have public frontage under our subdivision ordinance. So that's the purpose of that frontage right there. So the lot has frontage. It's not usable, but it does not need to be. So we're just working around a little issue there. In terms of recommended conditions of approval, removal of the Ashwaubenon shoreline permit note on sheet 204. Reason for that is because this area is not subject to shoreline zoning because it's been part of the village since incorporation. Approval of a PUD amendment for West Point Center by the Ashwaubenon Village Board, allowing for reduced frontage for Lot 3, as discussed. On the site plan, there's a refuse enclosure for the CBRF and townhomes. Just confirmation that the refuse enclosure is not located on the property line, as instead located inside one of the lots. And then last but not least, approval by the Brown County Planning Commission. The applicant is still working with Brown County and village staff on driveway access to Broadway. That's not part of this CSM, but just want to bring it to your attention. If you have any questions regarding the proposed CSM, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we do have representatives of the development team in the audience as well, if you have any questions for them.
Did we talk about splitting these lots up originally when
It wasn't, as part of the PUD, it wasn't really discussed at all.
That's what I
but
thought.
This is fairly common for financing purposes to split these properties up in 3 ways, or how many phases you might have there.
Sure.
And a standard procedure, we've been through this before when you get a large parcel, you divide it up for whatever buildings are on it. Move to approve, I don't have it.
So they would be able to be
Okay, I need
sold.
a second. Can somebody second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Okay, Chris.
They would also be able to be sold individually.
Correct. Yes.
Cool.
I guess.
Any other concerns? Questions?
I would much rather see that CBRF tied to something, so it can't just be sold off in a couple of years. My
Okay, so the person who's going to be the owner of it, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Ted Hunt. I'm the managing member of BayMar Holdings. And on that question, it's interesting, but this is an opportunity zone, which the greatest benefit is that we hold our properties for a minimum of 10 years. So there is no intent to sell. The operator for the CBRF, part of her lease is that she has the option to purchase in 10 years, after the 10-year period. She is exercising that on the very first one that we did for her a couple of years ago in Appleton. So the intent here, other than the initial sales in the townhomes, and then they would be subject to turnover in a normal residential sense, but from the commercial perspective, which is the CBRF and the apartment, they're going to be at least a 10-year hold. And if the apartments are performing as we fully expect in 10 years, this isn't going to be a fast turnover type of property at all. If we were going to turn it over, we would have done it previously on value of the land and value of future development, which is what we're doing it for, the development side.
Okay.
Thank
To answer your
Sorry to
question.
jump in, but I thought it would be easier.
It definitely does, you know.
Okay.
I would like,
Thank you.
I just don't want to see it turn over in a couple of years. That's becoming a thing with CBRF. People buy them, they staff them, then drop staffing, and then roll them over, sell them off, and get turnover in some of our facilities. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're doing our homework on it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve with staff conditions. Are there any other concerns, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 8B, consider discuss the village preference survey for the 2025 Ashwaubenon Comprehensive Plan. Aaron.
All right, I'll hit on this real briefly.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
I couldn't find the bar. We'd have to leave. Thank you all very much.
Have a good night.
Just hitting this real briefly. So as part of the comprehensive plan, we did a visual preference survey, and some of you sent some information back in as far as what do you like about the village, what don't you like, what aspects visually appeal to you or don't appeal to you. And it's kind of put a quick little bullet point list together in there. Just real briefly, general themes, quality playground, parks, recreational opportunities, continue our redevelopment efforts such as the Bellens, ASC, Mike McCarthy Way, Warman Avenue, Fox Riverfront, South Oneida Street as kind of examples where we've seen redevelopment and want to see continued redevelopment in those areas. Some vehicle transportation concerns, including sports, entertainment, parking, the State Highway 172 I-41 interchange barrier. We're splitting the village up into 4 quadrants. Not much you can do with that, but it's something to certainly be aware of. And then South Oneida Street, just in terms of maintaining visual appeal moving forward. Last couple ones here, continue to enforce commercial and residential property maintenance standards. And then promote residential improvement programs for single-family, multifamily development. So I want to make sure that when we get to the implementation section, implementation chapter, which is the last one that we'll do, I make sure to address programs that will hit on these themes. So that as we look at implementation efforts, that's in there, so that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when I'm no longer here, someone can look at it and say, okay, this is what we need to focus on back in 2025. So, old man Shooty did this comprehensive plan back in the day. So any questions on the visual preference survey?
I was talking to an individual the other day, I can't remember who it was. She said that she hasn't been through the village. They moved out of the village, they moved up north. And she said, Mary, I don't recognize the village anymore. You know, everything is so much taller. And so, well, yeah, we don't have a lot of land to go out. We got to go up. So, yeah.
Okay. And just like everything with the comprehensive plan, we're getting close to the end, so I can't say you have plenty of time, but if something else comes up that you say, hey, I want to make sure that, you know, I want to add this to the visual preference survey, just shoot me an email or a voicemail, and I'll make sure to add it.
Are we gonna talk about like height restrictions and stuff?
Yeah, that'll all be part of what I'm working on right now, is the land use chapter. So what I have to present now are just 2 chapters. The last 2 really kind of, I'll say background chapters, because they're all relevant to future development. But that second part of the land use chapter is where we get into that discussion, whether it's height, building design.
Sometimes a lot restricted by the airport.
Not necessarily, no. It's really restricted based upon the village's own code. We have a height restriction ordinance. And that was something that came up with the development that ultimately didn't happen. As far as there's some real kind of discussion from the board standpoint of, we need to take a look at this. Because as a village, as Mary alluded to, we need to grow up because we can't grow out anymore. So there were some restrictions on our height. Some might make sense yet, but some might need to be adjusted. So I think that's something for us to really take a look at. And we, as a commission, may not come to a conclusion on this area is going to be this and this area is going to be this, but instead it might be, we need to get a subcommittee together to focus on height and just focus in on that issue and, you know, kind of really hone in on that.
Isn't height kind of governed by the airport?
Not necessarily, no. The airport has zoning districts. Most of the village is in what's called Airport Zone C. Anything over 50 feet tall requires a permit from the airport, basically a sign off, and you know, that's not been a problem.
I know I had to put air conditioning equipment on top of a building for James River downtown, on the east side.
Okay. Yeah.
With the airport. What?
Yep, anything over 50 feet in that Airport Zone C. There are areas where it's more restrictive, basically the runway approaches and takeoff areas, but for the most part, it's that 50-foot permit. So with that, what I'll do is I'll just briefly hit on these 2 chapters. I trust you had a chance to read through them. And just like everything, any questions, don't worry about grammar, spelling, you know, we'll deal with that in the final cleanup. But any kind of policy questions, things like that, by all means, let me know. So let's hit a quick little presentation. Trust me, Gary, it'll be quick.
So this is for C?
This is for, oh, I'm sorry, moving on. No, I'm sorry, the next one.
Yeah, for C. Okay. Sorry.
All right. So, as you recall, we have 9 chapters under state statute that every comprehensive plan has to have. This is one of those that is very relevant, but it's not a very meaty chapter. Basically, what we want you to do is reach out to your neighbors in overlapping governmental jurisdictions and ask, you know, are there any issues that we need to be aware of over the next 20 years? So what I did was I did send out an email and a follow-up phone call to all of our neighboring jurisdictions, as well as Brown County and the United Tribe. I have some contacts at the state agencies as well. I did sit down with Brown County and the tribe. They're the only ones that actually responded, said, hey, yeah, we'd like to get together. No one else got back to me, so I was going to try to lead a horse to water if I was going to drink. But I just thought that was interesting. Those two entities said, yeah, I'd like to sit down and kind of go through some things. So as noted here, it does review the current and potential future intergovernmental cooperation efforts, again, with our overlapping and neighboring jurisdictional units of government. Let's go right to the recommendations, because again, I kind of go through some of the exact programs that we have. So for instance, with Alloway, we do have a shared equipment program. With school districts, we certainly have shared services with snow plowing, so on and so forth. But I thought I'd hit the recommendations on this. So Ashwaubenon School District, again, typo, so S, don't worry about that. So again, we have a number of cooperative ventures with the Ashwaubenon School District, such as the pool and the PAC. Again, it's a great opportunity to continue those, provide an equitable for both parties. Support the development of sidewalks on primary school to home walk routes, something that the village has been working on for the past number of years. Support efforts by the Ashwaubenon School District to grow its resident student population. That goes back to the comp plan a number of years ago. We're trying to get that turnover in homes by creating opportunities for people to move into apartments or condos rather than just stay in their homes longer than they necessarily want to. Continue coordination regarding snow removal and other potential shared services. Inform the school district of any new residential development that could increase the student population. This is an important one. This is about maintaining communication. So at West Pier, it's the same thing. We have quite a bit of new development happening in the West Pier School District. We want to make sure that they're aware of it so they can plan accordingly for their class sizes, bus routing, and so on and so forth.
Aaron, with that school district, as we know, the south end of the village is De Pere School District. Is there any way we can bring that school district to a Ashwaubenon School District? Or do we have any say in it?
The village doesn't have any say in it, and it has to be agreeable to both school districts. So basically, West Pier would have to say, yep, we're going to give up all of those students to Ashwaubenon, and it's not going to happen because that's a lot of revenue they're giving up. And again, talk about some sidewalks on school to home walk routes, which we're certainly doing. The United Nation, when I met with them, they're very appreciative of the open lines of communication. Very a lot. Kudos to you on that. They mentioned you specifically about really being involved in the tribe. They're appreciative of that. We discussed the trust lands along Packer and what their plans are for that. They did say that they have a much longer term view in terms of.
In other words, they're not going to do anything.
It's not likely to develop. Maybe some things around the one stop.
They're almost every day on it. What's going to go on?
Yeah, not likely much of anything. We talk about Short Road a little bit as a actual tribal road. They're going to do some maintenance on that just to make sure that is maintained. And then again, promote mutually beneficial economic development opportunities. Make sure we keep them involved, speed on what we're doing. If there's opportunities to develop some of the land like along 172 that they own, not trust land, make sure that we provide some cooperation on that. Neighboring local units of government, again, open lines of communication. We do have a service and border agreement with the town of Lawrence. That is coming up for renewal here in the not too distant future. So it's probably something we need to start taking a look at as a municipality and say, do we want to continue that? How do we want to handle that? So something kind of put on the village board's radar and probably Joel's radar to start thinking about that a little bit.
Dubs Clean was here as the president, and Tom P-Rock was the chair of the town of Lawrence at the time that was signed, I believe.
Sounds about right.
Just when I got on the board.
And credit to those elected officials for coming to an agreement on that. Mm-hmm. If you don't have to be involved in the annexation wars, you're better off for it. So it's tough. Again, make sure development's consistent across municipal boundaries. So for instance, don't put in a rendering plant across from the residential areas in Lawrence. That would be very neighborly. And take a look at joint.
That would smell, Aaron. And Joel and I went through Kaukauna today and it smelled really bad.
As a former Tillmany employee, that's called the smell of money.
There is a tool available to municipalities if they want to work together called Intergovernmental Multi-Jurisdictional Tax Increment Districts. There aren't many that have happened in the state just because of the complexities involved. But there's a tool that's out there. If the village decided to take action, something similar to that, we can. It would take some real forethought before you jump into that.
Don't we have one of those, Aaron, down here at Ashland and Lombardi with green, that it's a multi-jurisdictional?
We don't.
We're
not, no.
Mike was working on that.
Yeah.
Actually, Rob Coles was.
I think Rob was one of the drivers of that legislation.
Yeah.
But no, we only have the two officially closed them. Working with DOT, Ashland Avenue, of course, is a primary entranceway into and through the village. It's not always looking the best. So, working with DOT to convince them to provide some additional funding to allow for some more cutting of the phragmites. Right now, our guys are taking care of that basically on our dime. But also then 172 and 41. We want to make sure people, when they come through the village, it's welcoming. They recognize, hey, this is a good place to be. From an economic development standpoint, you make one first impression. And that's so important, even if you're just driving through your community. Work with the DOT again to apply for grants to expand our multi-use trail network, particularly taking a look at West Main Avenue Trail. We're just finalizing the engineering on that. So the engineering in hand, so we can then apply for grants to help offset some of the costs for that extension from Ridge Road all the way to Pier. And also DNR, we've worked with the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund and Great Lakes Restoration Initiative to support conservation and brownfield redevelopment efforts. Part of the reason you have these recommendations in here is so that when you apply for grants, you can point to them in the grant application. You can say our comprehensive plan recommends this. It makes it scores better on those grant applications. You can point to your confident and supportive of those efforts. In Brown County, you got a litany of them. Of course, the library, a big part of that right now with their move to the promenade, which I think is going to be just a phenomenal facility. I'm looking forward to seeing that open up, and then really work with the library to make sure that whatever programming occurs there is consistent with what residents of Ashwaubenon are looking for. Earlier we talked about, one of the visual preference surveys was making sure housing is maintained. We talked about this in the past, but Brown County operates a Northeast Wisconsin CDBG housing rehabilitation program. It's for low and moderate income persons, but you'd be surprised at what LMI thresholds are. It depends upon the number of people in your household. So, again, make sure people are aware of that, especially people who are retired, maybe just living on Social Security. They're eligible for it.
Ooh. What's the phone number?
Yep. You live in a condo, don't you, Jim? Yeah, sorry. That's the owner occupied, actually have the land along with it. And then the airport, of course, is a big part of the village. Airport has a lot of land out there that they're looking to develop. They can't sell the land. What they can do is enter into long-term leases. That's how Quick Trip was developed out there. They basically have a 99-year lease on that property. So there's quite a bit of land out there. Again, the village itself is short of land, so that's a real opportunity for us to capitalize on, work with the airport, and we're going to nudge them along once in a while, more than they have been. DOT mentioned 172-41 Ashland Avenue and the grants. So when it comes to intergovernmental cooperation or coordination, any questions on that at all, on that chapter?
My only question is, Aaron, I and I don't disagree about the sidewalks to the school district, but I really like to see before the village would put any money into that, for the school district to actually be coming up and back to us with information on how many kids are actually walking to school with all the school choice that we have, and how much do we need to invest in order to do that.
Okay.
That would just be a comment that I have about that. I'm not against those type of sidewalk, but being living very close to Pioneer School and seeing how many are actually walking to school and how many are being dropped off, it's a pretty low percentage.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'll include that in
That's a
there.
good point. I had to pick up my granddaughter once.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that it's bad in other communities too, because I was going to a different community on a Friday morning at like 7:20. So,
Kids don't walk to school anymore, Dad. Mom and Dad's got to take or their grandparents.
Hey, just don't pick them.
That's right.
All right, I'll jump into the transportation chapter, and see some similarities between recommendations, and that's because you want to make sure you have internal consistency in your comprehensive plan. Oops, not that. So this is, we'll have 7.5 out of the 9 chapters completed after we get through this one. We're almost there. Bear with me on this.
you're doing a great job here.
Thanks. It's a grind, but we'll get there. So transportation chapter, of course, thanks, Jim. Builds on the chapter 1 goal to maintain a safe and efficient multimodal transportation system that serves all Ashwaubenon residents. So again, that's our goal we're trying to achieve. So what are the recommendations that we can use to help further the village toward that goal? So as noted, provides background information on current transportation network, facilities, and service providers, and then identifies considerations for future transportation network. It's important to keep in mind again that these are considerations ultimately up to the village board for review, decision, and approval in terms of the budgeting process for how you want to move forward. Okay. A couple things I just want to always kind of bring up that seem generally counterintuitive to how we've handled things in the past. When I say we, I mean municipalities across the state and across the nation. Historically, the thought was to have a safe street, you have to have a very wide street for sight distances, everything else. The reality is what happens is if you're driving through a wide street, on a wide street, through a neighborhood, how fast are you driving? What's the biggest complaint you get with cars driving through neighborhoods? Speed. The reason for that is when you have a wide street, as a driver, you feel much more comfortable driving faster. You don't even know it. It might be 25, but you're going 35 before you know it. So what studies have now shown, and out in the field, we've recognized this as well. You see narrower streets create safer streets. Yeah, counterintuitive, right? And the reason for that basically are these 2 graphs up here that shows your reaction distance up on top and then your braking distance and how it increases the faster you go. So if you're going 20 miles an hour, or let's say 25 miles an hour, basically you're going about 150 feet before you come to a stop. You have your reaction time, wait, there's someone up there, your brake time, you travel 150 feet. So the slower you're going, shorter that stopping distance is. Likewise, then your pedestrian injuries at those impact speeds is significantly different the slower you're going. So again, it's really counterintuitive to how we've operated in the past. But as someone who's experienced these, and I've actually been in the field now where we've gone from the wide streets when I first started out to the narrower streets, I can see this. So it's something just kind of keep in mind as you drive through neighborhoods, take a look at the width of the streets, see how fast you're driving, whether it's Ashwaubenon or Oshkosh or Wausau, wherever. Just gotta pay attention to that. It's an interesting dynamic. So we want to make sure that our streets are built to service our land uses. So make sure our street, if you're in a residential street, it should be narrow and accommodate the neighborhood. If it's a commercial street, the businesses, high traffic, wider street. Okay, so let's make sure that everything kind of coincides that way. We want to make sure our streets are well connected. What that does is it provides multiple paths for people to get to and from locations, whether it's neighborhoods, commercial areas, whatever it is. So when you can connect a street, we really should. Now, I did just approve that subdivision plat for Winding Creek Estates. It's a good example of where we can't connect it right now. As much as everyone wants to, we recognize that at some point that will be connected, and that's the goal, rather than just cul-de-sacing it in perpetuity. The bottom part just again shows how a mixing of uses, like we're starting to see in the village center area, sports entertainment area, these are mixing appropriate uses. It again provides opportunities for people to create shorter driving distances, shorter walking distance, shorter biking distances, and provides options then for people to get to different places they might want to. Again, the key is appropriate land uses. You don't want to mix up, a drop forage company next to a neighborhood next to a daycare. But, a church in a residential area, Nativity, for instance, is a good example of that. Yeah, it works. So let's see a few of these recommendations. Work with our neighboring municipalities to further our multi-use trail network. Focus really on Sand Acres Park Extension, we talked about, West Main Avenue Trail, Packerland Trail, that's been a long-term goal for the village, and the extension of the Ashwaubenon Trail to the fairgrounds. The bike and ped plan is currently being updated by Brown County Planning, so we want to make sure that that is consistent with kind of the direction provided in this plan.
Aaron, can I ask a question?
Yeah, you bet.
I highlighted this.
Yep.
So the Packerland Trail extension from its terminus at Fernando Drive south to Grand Street.
Yep.
Is that on Hobart land? Because a lot of that Packerland Trail is on Hobart.
Yep, it is. That's why we want to work with our neighboring municipalities on that.
Right, because there were Rex had stuff in his CIP to fix that trail, and I called Hobart, and Hobart is going to fix it because it's on their land, so even though we put it in. So, okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Brian and Steve, engineering, use the Whistler database to maintain kind of a database of what kind of shape our roads are in. It's a great program to utilize, and our streets are in awesome condition. So let's continue to use that. Can you utilize street design techniques that reduce vehicle speeds, minimize possibility of conflicts, and enhance non-motorized accessibility to village intersections, specifically within that sports entertainment village center area where we are seeing increasing numbers of people walking, whether it's NFL draft, Packer game, Rush Center events, Epic Event Center events, Rockers games. We're seeing much more of that pedestrian traffic in this area, where people are crossing streets back and forth. We want to make sure that our intersections are designed to recognize that reality, and that may involve the installation of rapid flashing beacons, which we're working on currently. We talk about cul-de-sacs, when they must be built. Encourage businesses to utilize the CN rail spur in the industrial park. We currently have a lot of businesses in the industrial park up against that rail spur that don't utilize it. It'd be nice for the businesses that are on that rail spur to actually take advantage of it. So I guess as those businesses move out that are there, we want to make sure that businesses that move in utilize that. It's an incredible resource. Mentioned the airport to reutilize their non-aeronautical lands, complemented to airport nearby neighborhoods. The port of Green Bay actually has what's called a foreign trade zone. includes much of the industrial and business park. With the tariffs that were just enacted today, that may become a much bigger point of sale for potential businesses. I'll be honest, I don't entirely understand foreign trade zones and how it works, but I understand that it has to do with tariffs, and you might want to take a look at that. So as a real brief overview of the transportation chapter. Any questions on that? You just close out on me.
Do we have any roads that we're looking at, like doing anything with because of the heavier traffic now? Is there anything that's like on our radar?
As far as reconstruction?
Just like, I'll use Cormier and Pilgrim Way as an example. You just can't get out of there. Is there anything on the radar for looking at them, or is there a good time to like bring that up so we can kind of talk about? Because there's got to be other roads. That's just the one that I know of that's really bad.
I would say it'd be something to talk with Brian and Steve about first.
Okay.
And then kind of get their thoughts on, what is the primary issue? Is it just there's a lot of traffic on there? It's hard to get out?
It's just hard to get out of Pilgrim. There's a pretty good size, you get into anywhere between 3 and 4:30. It's pretty hard to pull out from Pilgrim on to Cormier, especially for anybody that has a bigger vehicle or whatever. So
I would say the best thing is to talk with Brian and Steve about that and just say, hey, notice this. What options are out there? They may know some, engineering, maybe there's enforcement needs to be done. Sure. Some different options to look at. If there's,
Do you need a motion to?
Nope, just informational.
Information only, right?
Yep, correct.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Aaron?
my only comment for Aaron is that I don't know how you find time to do this.
Like everyone else does.
You do a good job of it, so it's appreciated.
Thanks, appreciate it. I've gotten a good start on the second part of chapter 2. April's kind of I'm writing this month off. I'm hoping in May to bring through that second part of the chapter. And that one will take a little more time to get through as a committee. So I'll make sure I get that out to you well ahead of time to review it. And after that, I'll think it's wrapped up probably in July. All right.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have items for next agenda? Oh, yeah, I'm sure we do.
I can't think of any right now, but it's so early in the month, I'm willing to bet we will.
Okay, and we need a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, motion. Thank you.